I could feel the weight of the days stretching before me as I tried to understand what was happening in my life. The signs had been there, but it took me far too long to connect the dots. Samantha had been different for months, distant, distracted, never quite present. I thought it was the stress from her job, her long hours as a nurse, the constant emotional toll of dealing with patients and their families. But it was more than that, something I didn't want to acknowledge. It wasn't until I saw the text message that the truth finally hit me like a freight train. It was an ordinary evening. Samantha had just gotten out of the shower, and I noticed her phone on the kitchen counter. I had no intention of looking through her things, but there it was, buzzing with an incoming message. It wasn't from a number I recognized, just a name, Ryan. My heart skipped a beat, but I ignored it at first. That was until I noticed the text, reading, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. I'll make sure it's just the two of us this time." The world around me seemed to stop. I could hardly breathe. I never expected this, not from her. My hands felt clammy as I quickly scanned through the conversation, piecing it together. It wasn't the first time they had communicated like this. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that this could somehow be an innocent exchange, but the more I read, the more I realized that it wasn't. I confronted her the next day. Samantha tried to play it off at first, but when she saw my face, the truth was out. She didn't deny it. She admitted to everything. The affair had been going on for over a year. She said she had felt trapped, bored with our routine, our stagnant relationship. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She had been with someone else for a year, and I had been completely blind to it. It hurt in ways I couldn't explain. She said she had fallen out of love with me, that she had been searching for something, anything to make her feel alive again. And Ryan, the musician, had offered her that excitement. I was devastated. But there was more. The more I dug into this, the more I found. I started looking through her phone more carefully. I wasn't proud of it, but the need to know what had been going on for so long was overwhelming. That's when I discovered something that cut deeper than the affair itself. Ryan wasn't just some random guy she met at work or through friends. He was an old acquaintance of mine, someone I had known back in high school, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. I remembered his face, his laugh, and yet, somehow he had wormed his way into my life again, into my home, into my marriage. The betrayal felt like it wasn't just from Samantha anymore, it was from Ryan too. How could he have done this to me? To us? My mind was spinning, the anger building inside me. The worst part was that Samantha didn't even seem remorseful. She apologized, of course, but it felt hollow. She didn't seem to grasp the full weight of what she had done. It wasn't just about the affair. It was the lies, the deception, the years of intimacy we had shared that now felt tainted. I couldn't bring myself to forgive her. How could I? The shock of everything unfolding after the divorce still lingers, but what came after was even harder to process. When she left, I was blindsided. Honestly, I thought we were doing okay. Sure, there were moments of distance, but I attributed it to the stresses of work, raising a kid, and life in general. I didn't know there was someone else, let alone a secret life. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to unravel the truth, piece by piece. It all began when I came across the calendar. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through some bills and financial papers, when I found the calendar on her phone. I never thought much about it, but now that she was gone, I was trying to figure out where the money had been going. It was in plain sight, several evenings marked with meetings, all listed as work events or appointments. The odd thing was, those dates always coincided with the time she told me she'd be out with friends or working late. The meetings were always at odd hours, things I never noticed before. The more I stared at it, the more I realized that these were the same nights Ryan would post pictures on social media, usually of gigs he was playing at local bars. That hit me hard, seeing that her work events were nothing more than secret rendezvous. I had suspected something, but I didn't want to believe it. Now I had proof, right there in her calendar. But the calendar wasn't the only thing that threw me off. There were the financial documents. I had trusted Samantha to handle the bills, to manage the family's money. I didn't ask questions, but when I started going through the records, I noticed some strange transactions. Small charges at first, ones I thought nothing of. But then came a larger sum, one that didn't make sense. A withdrawal for thousands of dollars from our savings account, followed by an unexplained bill from a plastic surgery clinic. I couldn't believe it at first. Samantha had been hiding this from me, hiding a major financial burden that we weren't even aware of. She had taken out loans for cosmetic procedures she never discussed with me. I knew her well enough to know she wasn't the type of person to spend money frivolously. This was something hidden, something planned. I kept digging. It wasn't just the debt, it was the secrecy. A loan in her name, but the statements were directed to addresses I didn't recognize. I was dumbfounded. She had buried it all under layers of lies. To think that we had been living our day-to-day lives, acting as if everything was fine, while she was secretly sinking us into debt for things she never shared with me. It stung. This wasn't just an emotional betrayal. This was a financial betrayal too. That's when the full picture started to form. It wasn't just Ryan. It was the lies. The planning. Samantha had been building a life outside of ours for a long time. She wasn't confused about wanting a divorce. She had known exactly what she was doing. She had kept her debts from me, kept Ryan from me, all while living under my roof, pretending everything was normal. The reality of it was like a punch in the gut. The worst part, it felt like it was all my fault for not seeing it sooner. I never expected the housewarming party to set everything into motion. It wasn't the first time I'd seen Emily outside of work, but it was the first time I felt like I was seeing her with new eyes. She looked just as beautiful as I remembered, but there was something different in her energy. She was laughing more than usual, talking to everyone around her. At one point, I saw her chatting with a guy I didn't recognize. He was older than me, wearing a leather jacket and a smirk that seemed a little too cocky. They stood close together, their body language familiar, too familiar. I couldn't help but watch them for a moment. My stomach twisted into a knot as I saw how they joked, laughed, and shared stories like they'd known each other for years. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just old friends catching up, but something about it bothered me. It took me back to when I found out about Samantha. I remembered how she used to smile like that when she talked to Ryan, that same kind of smile that made my heart sink. I had trusted her, loved her, and still, she had betrayed me. Maybe Emily wasn't doing anything wrong, but my insecurities, born from Samantha's betrayal, were suffocating me. I tried to ignore it, to have a normal conversation with others at the party, but every time I glanced over, I saw Emily and that guy laughing again, and I felt like I was drowning in my own doubts. I caught myself wondering, what if I'm just like my ex, now too afraid to let anyone in, too paranoid to see things for what they really are? By the end of the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing control. Emily noticed it too. I could see the concern in her eyes when she asked if I was okay. I wanted to tell her everything. That I was scared, that I couldn't let go of the past, of what Samantha had done. But instead, I nodded, smiled weakly, and told her I was fine. She didn't push. The next few days were just as confusing. I started pulling back, retreating into myself. Emily sent me texts, asking if I wanted to grab coffee or catch up, but I ignored them. I couldn't let myself get close again. Not while these fears still held me hostage. It wasn't fair to her, but it wasn't fair to me, either. The emotional distance I'd felt with Samantha was creeping up again. I was terrified of being hurt again, of giving someone my trust only to have them crush it in the end. I knew I was overthinking things. Emily hadn't done anything wrong, and yet I couldn't stop myself from assuming the worst. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. But every time I saw Emily, a part of me wanted to fight against this fear, to take the risk and let myself feel something again. But then that feeling of betrayal, of helplessness, would come rushing back. The worst part. I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to let someone in without the past destroying everything before it even had a chance to begin. I couldn't believe she was standing in front of me, asking for forgiveness, like everything could just go back to normal. The words she said hit me, but my mind couldn't make sense of them. "David, I'm pregnant." "It's Ryan's," she said, her voice shaky, as if expecting me to understand the weight of it all in a single breath. But I didn't understand. I wasn't ready to process what she was saying. I was still trapped in the aftermath of everything she had done, the betrayal that had shaken me to my core. I stared at her, unable to form words. The anger surged through me again, but this time there was something else, something cold and calculating that I hadn't felt before. The reality was settling in. This wasn't just about her leaving me for another man. It wasn't even just about the affair. It was about how she'd completely disregarded everything our years together, our shared life. She was now asking me to forgive her for the one thing I could never forget. Do you even realize the mess you've created? I managed to say, my voice harsh and raw. You left me for him. For someone who didn't care about you the way I did. And now, you expect me to just what? Accept this, baby. Accept that you think it's all just going to magically get better. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty. I'm not asking you to forget everything, David. I want to fix this. I want to make it right. I couldn't help but notice the letter she was holding. It wasn't just an ordinary letter. It looked like a loan document. I didn't want to look at it, but I couldn't pull my eyes away. As she quickly tried to hide it, I saw the word loan written clearly on the front. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I had no idea what she was hiding, but I knew it couldn't be good. What's that? I asked, my voice tight. What are you hiding, Samantha? She froze, her face pale, and I could see the panic in her eyes. She hesitated before reluctantly handing it to me. The moment I saw the loan application, my heart dropped. It was a loan from Ryan's name, one he had taken out to fund a music project that had failed. A huge sum of money, with nothing to show for it. I stared at the document, trying to piece everything together. Samantha hadn't just left me for someone else. She had chased a dream with Ryan, a dream built on instability and false hope. He was no better than she was. I looked up from the document, the weight of it all crashing down on me. This is what you've been chasing? I asked, disbelief in my voice. A failed music project. A man who can't even manage his own finances. Her silence was deafening. She had no answer for that. I could feel my trust in her, in everything we had built together, crumble. She had chosen to live a life that wasn't just unstable, it was reckless. She had placed all her faith in someone who couldn't offer her anything but chaos, and I was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered life. I'm sorry, David. I didn't know how to fix it, she said softly. But I had already made up my mind. No, Samantha, I said, my voice firm now. This isn't something you can fix. Not anymore. I couldn't forgive her. Not after everything. And that letter, that one simple document, had shown me exactly how misplaced her choices had been all along. I woke up one morning, the sunlight streaming through the blinds, and for a second, I thought I might still be living in that fog of confusion and pain. But then the reality hit. The divorce was final, and everything had changed. What made it worse was the realization that Samantha had been in the arms of Ryan for so long, while I had been blind to it. I felt stupid, angry, betrayed, but somehow I couldn't let it all consume me. It wasn't easy, but the truth was too undeniable. Samantha had been hiding things from me, emotional and financial. I didn't realize how far she'd gone until I found the bills she'd been hiding. It all started when I was cleaning out a drawer that I had avoided for months. I was looking for a pen, something trivial. When I found the envelope, it was marked from a cosmetic surgery center. I thought it was odd, but I opened it anyway, only to find a breakdown of charges for multiple procedures she had undergone. These weren't minor things. They were surgeries that were supposed to make her feel better about herself, but she hadn't told me a thing about them. I had no idea she'd been accumulating debt on top of everything else. The amount was substantial, and that's when I knew there was more to her departure than just her emotional dissatisfaction. She had a financial secret, one she was hoping I would never uncover. She had been using our savings to fund these surgeries without consulting me, while at the same time feeling resentment about money problems that had been building up. It hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't just unhappy with me. She was also living a double life, hiding things that affected both of us. Then came the moment when I realized that she and Ryan weren't just an emotional affair, but a full-on replacement. One afternoon, I drove by the old cafe where I'd seen them together once before. This time, though, I didn't just see them sitting at the table in the window. I overheard them talking, and I didn't want to eavesdrop. But they were so loud. Ryan was telling her how he couldn't keep up with the rent, because his music career wasn't making enough, and that's when I understood. Samantha wasn't just jumping from one man to another for love, she was chasing something unstable, both emotionally and financially. It was all falling apart for them too, just like it had for us. I kept trying to move forward. I focused on work, kept my head down, and poured myself into coaching the soccer team. It was a distraction, and honestly, it helped. But even through that, Emily started to become a constant. She had always been there, but it was only after everything with Samantha ended that I began seeing her differently. The more I spent time with her, the more I realized that she wasn't like the others. She was strong, independent, and didn't need me to fill any void in her life. But I still had my walls up, scared to get too close. Then one night, we ran into each other at a mutual friend's housewarming party. There she was, laughing with her old friends, and for a moment, it triggered my old fears. I wasn't used to seeing her with others, and something inside me twisted. I was afraid of being replaced, of losing someone I cared about again. Later that night, we had a quiet conversation. I confessed my fears, and Emily admitted she was scared too. She told me about how she almost went back to her ex, a man who had hurt her before, but this time, she chose honesty with me. She didn't want to repeat the same mistakes, just like I didn't. And it was in that moment, when she chose me over the safety of the past, that I realized she wasn't going to hurt me like Samantha had. She wasn't going to disappear. I wanted to believe in us, and for the first time I did. Samantha and Ryan, on the other hand, continued down their rocky path. I heard from friends that their relationship was unraveling, the weight of Ryan's financial troubles pushing them further apart. The situation was unstable, and I found myself thankful that I wasn't part of it anymore. Life wasn't perfect, but with Emily, I was starting to feel like I could love again, and it felt right this time. The day Samantha called me, asking if I could take her to her doctor's appointment, I hesitated. I was deep into my relationship with Emily, building something stable, something real. But there was that part of me that couldn't ignore my responsibility. It wasn't about her, it was about the baby. I agreed, but I made it clear that I wouldn't stay long. When I picked her up, she looked different. The confidence she used to have, the arrogance in the way she once spoke to me, it was gone. She was tired, her hands fidgeting in her lap as she stared out the window. At the clinic, I sat in the waiting room while she went in, scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself. But then, I heard my name. David? I looked up, and Samantha stood in the hallway, looking hesitant. The doctor wants to talk to both of us. I was confused, but I followed her in. The doctor spoke in a calm, professional tone. The baby is healthy, but we do need to discuss some concerns. That was the moment I realized just how alone Samantha really was. She didn't have anyone else to turn to, no real support system. Ryan was nowhere in sight. He was the father, but he wasn't stepping up. A week later, Samantha texted again. This time, she wasn't asking for a ride. Can we talk? I almost ignored it, but something in me told me to hear her out. We met at a cafe, one we used to go to back when things were good. She was nursing a cup of tea, her fingers tracing the rim of the mug. Ryan left. She finally admitted, barely above a whisper. I leaned back in my chair, watching her. What do you mean left? She sighed. He took off. He couldn't handle it. He said he needed space, needed to figure things out. But I know what that means. He's not coming back. I wasn't surprised. Ryan had always seemed like the kind of guy who lived in the moment, never thinking beyond his next gig. I had seen his pattern, the way he never held on to anything for too long. So what do you want from me, Samantha? I asked, keeping my tone even. I'm not Ryan. I won't disappear, but I'm not your backup plan, either. She blinked, caught off guard. I could see it then. The regret, she had gambled everything and lost. I wanted to say I'm sorry. It was the first time she had ever admitted it. After that, things changed. I still helped when I could, but I stopped feeling like I owed her anything. I had my own life now. Emily and I were growing stronger. One evening as I sat with Emily on her couch, her hand in mine, I realized something. I wasn't trapped in my past anymore. I had survived, and I had moved on.